WhatsApp from Irene describing me as a billionaire. You know, and I said she has made a mistake in spelling. I have bullions. Bullion is gold around me. And honestly, and I have a colleague who's very much more experienced than me, but even he will agree with you. Your wealth is not in shillings or dollars. And I'm very, very lucky. First of all, I have a wife with whom I'm married for 52 years. And like in one of the conferences, somebody stood up and said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What's wrong with you? How have you survived 52 years? But that's between my wife and myself. Secondly, one of the wealth that you carry around is when your children, in their own right, are doing well. And I can be proud. Yes, this gives me a platform to say, I've got 3 daughters, brilliant daughters. They went to the best of the universities in England and the best of the universities in the United States. Okay, so I can be right. But that's not the only thing. I have on the Zoom, my brother-in-law, Nattu Sangrajka, and I hope he's linked up and is listening. Throughout my journey, for almost 52 and a half years, he has been more than just a relation or a friend. We became very close. We would talk out issues, problems, and so on. And then, as you go along in your journey, you make friends. And I'm so lucky. Today, I cannot say I'm lonely. Because a lot of people do well, make money or not make money, but they get lonely. Today, I can just name at least 12 people here who are my close friends who would come to my home if I had a problem in the middle of the night. How many of you can say that? That's your wealth. And then, of course, over years, you have made friends with your Karoga group, your golfing friends, and most important for me, and this is something I'm going to hopefully come out and you will learn from me. What changed some of the things in my life? I think institutions like Roundtable when you are under 40, institutions like Rotary, and I'll try and explain you how it changed me from someone who had shaky knees when he picked a microphone to now I can address you, and in my 50 years I've had opportunity to address presidents of our countries and so on, and you don't shake. I can come over here and hopefully speak things without feeling too much nervous and so on. In addition to this one, I made friends in different lobby groups, different business groups, and that is my wealth. That is what gives me the pleasure of life, to be able to sit back and enjoy the memories and so on. And in addition to this one, I have traveled. I've not been to South America, but I have traveled reasonably well. And I have small connections, large connections in different parts of the world, but I have a lot of pleasant memories. That's what makes me millionaire, billionaire. But I have changed it to the word bullion, gold. My memory and my friends are gold to me. Thank you. Now, the first question Arun had set on me was, are you sure you can speak well and relate well? So I decided that whatever few things I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to practice. And can you see the screen over there? A week ago, I called in my friends. It was a Friday evening, I remember, 5:30. And I said, fellows, I don't know who I'm going to address to. And I was worried about a couple of my friends bringing rotten eggs and tomatoes and so on. And I tried to practice it. That is part of my wealth. There are Columbus monkeys. That particular evening, there were between 22 and 26 Columbus monkeys out where I was sitting, and then they came and stayed there for 45 minutes. And imagine how you feel when you're watching them, jumping them, and so on. They were pleasure of my eyes, my mind, and so on. Okay, Clinton, let's go to the next slide. Arun just touched upon, very shortly, that my journey has had a lot of ups and downs, mainly business. And after 50 years of that journey, I decided to call this evening's talk Crossing Red Oceans Until One Reaches Green Shores. So you can see the waves coming over there, and as I proceed, hopefully you will understand some of the aspects of my journey. But I'm late in my life, but I have a home which is in the middle of greeneries, and I have a wife who can look after it so well. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. I'm just going to, for ease of life, ease of discussion, what I've done is a very simple slideshow. I decided to put 50 years on the bottom. No, sorry, 70 odd years in the bottom, starting from a little baby. Okay. And this is for a lot of young people. Hopefully, as we go along, you will see why a human being takes certain decisions and on what factor as he goes along, as he grows. So I was born in Nairobi 77 years ago. And then Arun's next question to me, yes, but what was your parents' background and origin? Now that's where a lot of interesting things start. Tracing back, my father and his brothers were economic refugees from India. They came around, I don't have the exact date, 1912, 1913, around there, in a boat, in a ship, I don't know. In those days, when you couldn't afford anything, you came in dhows. Whether they came in a boat, I don't know. But how many of you know what dhow is? You all know it, possibly. The dhow is something that doesn't have an engine. It sails with its sail, depending on your winds. And I think in our coast, we have the monsoon wind that would bring the ship here or take it over there. And out of 10 dhows, statistically 2 never reach the shores. Okay, that was the risk you took. And at a very early age, my father, I won't go into the story of how he came to Maranga and then back to Nairobi, but at a very early age, and my mother was just about 13 years of age, they got married and they had 8 siblings. They lived on Abdullah Street, just around River Road. So very proudly, when I have a lot of argument with the used to have with the town clerk or the mayor of the town, I said, "You are all foreigners. Maybe you come from Maranga." And I remember the vice mayor came from somewhere from Garissa, and I said, "You are a foreigner." I know every street of that part. So we were born as a very simple breadline family. What changed things? My father learned to be an accountant, and he started working with some well-known firms. Madatali Suleiman Viti was one of them. And my mother, in 2-room, which included a kitchenette. In those days, the washroom used to be right at the end of little area, open area. She had accommodated all of us, but with help of my father, she had a little corner where my father and her would import clothing material for Indians, and she would stitch top, bottom, whatever, foil, whatever you call it, and that's how it all started. She had the commercial sense. Where did she pick up her commercial sense? Her father was a resident in Kijabe. I don't know how many of you know that. It's a beautiful place, about 50 on the way to Nakuru, 55, 60 kilometers from here. And he became, in his own right, again, he had come as an economic refugee. And it's very interesting. The question would be, why did they become as an interesting economic refugees? Two issues immediately come to my mind. One was something I knew for a long time, but second one which I picked up in the last few years. The first one was there was a massive drought over there, 7 or 8 years drought. People were dying like they die in Turkana and dropping dead. So somebody said, look, there's a place called Africa, always green, never short of food. And that's how, forget the indentured people who came to build the railways, but the other Gujaratis and others came for that reason. The second reason I learned over the last few years, I was naive, yes, I spent a lot of time in England and so on, was that when India was a colony of Britain, and especially during the wars, all the food and other things, wealth was diverted towards England and the British soldiers. But that made the country so poor, couldn't look after you, and that's what made them come over here. Then let's carry on. So the school we had, and again, something for you young people which you might not have experienced. We got our independence in 1963. But before that, Kenya was a British colony. And I don't know how many of you have had a chance to read or study the life before independence. We had total racial discrimination. So we didn't have a choice that my son would go to a private school, go to multiracial schools. Even the area we are in now, Parklands, Westland, were all marked for either Asians, other part for whites, other part for blacks. So much so that I've spent a lot of time near on Lunga Lunga Road and so on. There are housing estates right up to the year 1958-59. Odinga's, our first vice president's home, and they had these little small houses that were given to them by the colonial masters. So I was brought up in that environment. And then around I'm having bad eyes, okay, 59, I was only just crossed 14 when I lost my father. And growing up, when your parents are around and when you are a little bit dependent has its own changes that comes around. And that affects you, and I'm gradually coming to that point. Luckily enough, I just managed to scrape through my O levels, and I decided to go to England. The family could hardly afford it, but I managed my way there, did my A levels and my bachelor. After a year at Glaxo in their research laboratory, I did my master's and I came back. Now, whether I came back or I was asked to come back, it's a very simple question. The family felt that it was a payback period. So when I finished my master's in '69, he said, Arun, please come home. And this is how the last slide over there, which is difficult to read because of green and white, but I worked with my family business. And I would do any jobs or anything that I was asked. But there were a couple of things I did, which again I'll explain you in the next slide. What happened was in the beginning of 1970, we had a very loyal, hard-working manager, sales manager. And he said, Arun, I am going to Uganda for business. How would you like to come? And I jumped with him. And it was about 2.5 week journey, visiting all the commercial centers, all the mainly Asian businessmen. Those were the days when you didn't have Kenyan distributors and so on. It was very much confined to Asians. And I saw the whole country, right up to Kishoro on this side, going up to the border of Zaire, Arua, Gulu, Saroti, and of course Kampala and so on. And that is where you develop a little bit of salesman and human skills and so on, etc. And then after about 5 months, one of the things my family business was making was candles. I'm purposely going into small details because I think you will see the threads coming in a little bit later on. And one of the market they had was Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. They had one customer and so on. And all of a sudden the customer had stopped buying. So one of my brothers says, Arun, how would you like to find out what's going on over there? So guess what? We're always looking for some excuse to travel, jump in the aeroplane. I had my sister living there, married and over there, and pitch up over there and said, okay. Next day I go to the business. He said, no, I'm not going to place any business with you in Nairobi. So I said, well, what's the problem? You know? Eventually I managed to find out someone had set up a similar candle making machinery in a place called Matwara. I don't know how many of you have heard of that place. If you look at the map of Tanzania, it's almost on the bottom of Tanzania approaching Mozambique. Okay? So I said, what do I do? All right? And this fellow refused. He said, we got a strict instruction, buy Tanzania, nothing from, if it's available in Tanzania, not from anywhere else. And I think this is a story, those of you who are in business and so on, you will hear protectionism, okay? So I don't know what happened. I said, let me fly over there and see who they are, what they are. And I flew over there, just took a little chance. Communication was zero with Nairobi because those were the days when you had to go turn, and the chances were 90% you never got through, right? You remember those lovely days. I go over there, I'm received, lunchtime, they give me nice Gujarati lunch, and I said, I want to see your machine and your business. And then, how are you doing? And he said, we are so far from Dar es Salaam, we are not doing well. So I said, you want to sell it? And we agreed to a price. I didn't know where the funds were coming from, but I said, agreed, we should. shook hands. Next day I got flight to Dar es Salaam, find a lawyer, find my brother-in-law who had money. We gave it to the lawyer. So he said, right, ring, yes, okay. Everything belongs to Mr. Devani. Found some truck, send it to Nairobi. And we brought the machinery, the raw materials and so on. And guess what? Next day I go over to the customer and I said, I'm going to sell you cannabis. But he said, Arun, I told you, we can't buy from you. I said, there's no machinery in the Matwara. We bought everything out, it's already in Nairobi. And I managed to get a business, significant business and so on. So that was bringing us to the end of 1970. Then let's come to the next slide. What happens? And again, this is an interesting thing that you have to know. The first one says, March or April, I left the family business and I went back to London. There were one very obvious reason, one very subtle reason. And it's right. The obvious reason was I was having conflict with at least one of my brothers. Now, let me expound on that one because you in business would be coming across this all the time. It all depends if you become, whether you have partners or brothers, it's a partnership. At what level are you able to communicate? Okay. Now, in my case, there was a famous Gujarati word called Vilayat written, which is, he's from England and so on. So I had been exposed to that style of interacting with people. I'm not saying business because I was new to business, but you're interacting with business, you're not guilty until proven guilty and so on. And then you're dealing with family members who have either finished all levels of standard Form 3 and running the business successfully. I mean, they were very successful, they're very hardworking, successful. But you have a lot of communication difficulties and understanding each other. Something you have to keep in mind when you form partnership, and there's something else as well, further on. And the second one was, I'm looking at my wife, my heart was there because we had been courting for a few years, a couple of years, and then any chance I got, I said, here it is. And I left, stopped, lot, everything, barrels, jumped in the aeroplane and so on. Okay, so what happens next? We get engaged in UK, and we come to Kenya because we like to get married at home. And I bumped into a friend with whom he was doing masters, when I was doing my bachelor's, pharmacy. He was working with Glaxo, and I done Glaxo. And he was working here. He said, Arun, you were bloody ambitious. I was ambitious. And now, look what I'm doing, I'm working for somebody else. And you are working with Boots over there. Haven't you thought? So I just said, let's do it. And we both had less. I had 28,000 shillings, he had 30,000 shillings, and we took a decision to become partners and grow. And we said, we are going to make pharmaceuticals over here. Now, this is what I wanted to quietly explain you, that if I go back to the previous slide, what happens is, I was getting an opportunity to start a business with £1,500. When I was in England, and I remember I had failed to raise money, when I had won my boats with the family business, I wanted to acquire a business because somehow business is in blood, if you like to call it. We could not raise £3,000 because that's the deposit somebody wanted. I didn't want to be in retail, but that was the only entry I could think of, and I couldn't raise it. I wanted to buy a property and I couldn't raise £1,500. Okay. So you're coming to a place, you're getting an opportunity which meets your budget. Number two, I knew my friend was extremely good at technical side. I had been exposed to East Africa. Uganda. I'd gone to around Mount Kenya, getting stuck between Embu and Meru during rainy season, pushing the car and so on, so I knew the business. And I'd been to Tanzania. So I got an opportunity mentally to say, look, I know the territory. It's the money that fits in. And I've got a technical man who will support me while I run around and so on. And quietly, and a wife who's an accountant in case I need somebody to look after the booking. That's what made me start a business over here in Kenya. So everything is going well. And I'm going to come on with little stories, please. I know I'm taking longer. If you want to throw me out, you can tell me and I'll stop. But little things in life, how it affects the business and who causes it, why it happens. Around 1975, we were doing well. We had expanded our business to Tanzania. I will talk to you about Uganda, and there's a red line over there. And Kenya, we were doing fairly well. And then one day, my partner comes to the office. He said, Arun, I'm leaving 30 days from now for England. I said, Devani, have I hurt you anywhere? Have I been unfair to you? Have I robbed you of anything? He said, no. What happened was, they were having a family wedding. His younger brother-in-law had come from England. His wife was in the car, and they were going on Nakara Road, and the young man was driving the car. He saw 7, 8 cars standing idle, and he decided to overtake. Only to find that on Fortol Road, motorcade of President Kenyatta was going. And there were last 3, 4 cars, they just stopped. Then, even before asking any questions, slapped the 2 of them. His wife was bleeding all over. The little man was hurt, put in the booth and taken to State House and locked up. The young man went to the court, and then magistrate was a little intelligent. He said, I haven't heard of anyone assassinating the president. And he's a young boy, 18 years of age. Don't do it next time. But what happens? Because of the dictatorial mentality in the country, when he decided where there is no respect for individuals, and he was a man of a lot of principles, he said, Arun, I am living in 30 days, not 31 days. And the interesting part is, so we both have, I have tears in my eyes, because when you have formed a partnership that's running well, and all of a sudden you get that shock, you're lost. But anyway, so then I said, when do we sit down and see how we part? Because when you're in business, you don't have liquidity. If you have liquidity, you will reinvest it. So we said, okay, let's meet tomorrow evening. It took us 30 minutes to agree how we're going to part. We opened up Tusker, celebrated our 4 good years. But the point I'm trying to tell you is, if you don't have respect for individuals, there are people of serious principle, they will not stay behind. And this is what's happened. If you look around in our East Africa, over years there's been storms, the problems, and a lot of good people have left for Canada, a lot of people for England, Sweden, and they don't necessarily need us. But let's go back to the slide. That was 75, but let's come to 1972. We started the business in December 1971, January 72. And come April, you have Idi Amin expelling all the Asians and Jews from Uganda. Imagine you being in my wife's shoes. She had only a little period to become a fully chartered accountant. She sacrificed that to accept my decision to start a business and not go back to England. When the expulsion happened in Uganda, negativism spread in Kenya. Our politicians started saying, let's do the same here, let's do the same. To hawa wahindi kwa hapa, hawa ni mwizi. Take it out. I would like you to imagine, what do you go through mentally? Secondly, when it was an East African community, remember that, right up to 1977 when I got another red line. When it affects one country, the economy of the other country drops. So first thing that happened to us is, as we started in 72, the market and so on in Uganda, that stops. Then you see the refugees going through the railway stations, and there's a tremendous negativity. So you go through, what's going to happen next? And a number of our members of parliament were sent to Uganda to find out what's happened and can we replicate. Fortunately, Jomo Kenyatta, in his wisdom, he said, "Apana namaza, letawa na kaaba." Okay? Okay. So, anyway, we start, and then we build up our business, mainly Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. In 1975, I get a call from my brother. He said, Arun, send me a check for so much. We bought Twigger Paints business. Well, I said, okay, Motabai, because that's the respect we give to our eldest brother. And I sent it. And I'll talk about it in a minute. So I became a shareholder in ICI's paint division. We were de-investing and so on. And things start moving. We do well. Our market in Tanzania really built up. And I was also started riding little high in Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya. And I was just looking at the slide. Do forgive me, my eyesight is not terribly good. In 1977, I even became chairman of the Pharmaceutical Society, and everything was going well. And then what happens? The formation of the group is on the other side. I couldn't keep my mouth shut, so my brother says, okay, you're the chairman of the new company. All right, fine. Okay, fine. But that wasn't important.